Usually, when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this underlying expectation of like absolute precision, you
Oh,
know?
totally. We treat the body a bit like a car engine.
Right. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the screen and says, well, there it is. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's deeply comforting to have that kind of binary view. Oh, I mean, we naturally gravitate toward things that can be, made visible,
Yeah.
categorized, and definitively fixed.
Exactly.
The broken bone model of illness, it feels very safe because the mechanism is just so obvious.
But then you step into the world of chronic symptoms or recurring illnesses, sudden inexplicable physical reactions, and suddenly that x-ray machine is just utterly useless.
Completely useless.
We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky. I mean,
Right.
you could have 3 different people going through the exact same high-stress situation at work, right?
Right.
And one gets a migraine, the second loses their voice entirely, and the third feels perfectly fine.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a fundamentally different approach to how we view our physical symptoms and our body's like ancient defense mechanisms.
It really is fascinating.
If you've ever struggled with a symptom that just wouldn't quit, the research we're unpacking today is going to completely flip the script on how you view your own biology.
It requires a massive paradigm shift, though. I mean, to truly engage with this material, we have to completely abandon the idea that the body is capable of making mistakes or that it attacks itself out of nowhere.
Right, which is huge. And we're pulling from a really fascinating set of sources today, a detailed PDF and some comprehensive analysis notes on Manuele Baciarelli's Manifesto of the Biological Enneagram and the Science of Survival.
Yes.
But right out of the gate, we need to highlight a crucial disclaimer from the author himself. Baciarelli states very clearly that this manifesto is, it's not a final closed theory.
Which is actually a remarkably transparent stance in the world of scientific and psychological research.
Yeah, you don't hear that often.
No, you really don't. He's essentially admitting that he thought his earlier work was complete, but continuous clinical observation yielded these anomalies that he just couldn't ignore.
Wow.
He realized that true research only grows when your old answers are no longer sufficient to explain the human being sitting right in front of you.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to trace the logical progression of Baciarelli's text through 3 fundamental questions. And these questions challenge the entire foundation of why we get sick and how our bodies actually navigate the healing process.
So, to grapple with the first of those 3 questions, which is simply, how does a symptom arise?
Right.
We have to trace the evolution of Baciarelli's research over the last 2 decades. You see, the standard medical model views a symptom as an enemy.
Like a glitch.
Exactly, a glitch. An invader that must be suppressed or eradicated as quickly as humanly possible.
A broken part in the machine.
That is the prevalent mindset, yeah. But this research positions the symptom as a profound entry point, not an error. It's the final, visible result of a deeply logical biological process.
Okay, break that down for us.
The text outlines the mechanics like this. First, an unexpected, often dramatic event happens in your life. Instantaneously, your system assigns that event a biological meaning.
Instantaneously.
Yes, in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
That meaning triggers a biological response, which is a literal change in tissue function, like increasing cell growth or widening a duct.
Oh, wow.
And when that response is prolonged over time, or when the conflict finally resolves and the body tries to repair itself, that is when the symptom actually appears.
So the symptom is basically just the loud machinery at the very end of the assembly line.
That's a great way to put it. Baciarelli actually used to refer to this end product as a biological solution in his earlier books.
Right, I read that.
It was a way of honoring the fact that the body is actively trying to solve a survival problem, not malfunction. But in this new manifesto, we see a massive shift in his terminology.
Yeah, this part is key.
He explicitly stops calling it a biological solution and redefines it as a biological equilibrium.
I found this shift in the notes incredibly profound because, the word solution inherently implies that the problem is fixed, it's done.
Exactly.
But we all know from our own lives that symptoms come back. We have flare-ups, we have relapses. If the symptom was a true solution, it wouldn't need to keep happening on a loop.
Right, it would just be a one-and-done deal.
Let me throw an analogy at you to make sure we're locking in on this concept of equilibrium.
Oh, we'd love to hear it.
Imagine you're at a restaurant and your table has a wobbly leg. Every time you lean your elbows on it, your water glass almost tips over. It's chaotic.
I know that exact feeling.
Right. So you take a thick paper napkin, you fold it up a bunch of times, and you wedge it under that short table leg. Now, the table is stable. Have you solved the problem of the broken table?
Well, no.
No, the leg is still physically broken, but you've achieved an equilibrium that keeps your dinner from spilling onto your lap.
That analogy captures the mechanics perfectly. I mean, the folded paper isn't a permanent structural fix,
Right.
but it is the absolute best adaptation you can manage in that exact moment, utilizing only the immediate resources you have to prevent a catastrophe.
And the text uses this exact logic to explain why symptoms relapse. The survival system, which Baciarelli identifies as this invisible protagonist driving all these neurobiological processes, it isn't trying to teach us a profound spiritual life lesson through our illness.
No, not at all.
It's much older and much more pragmatic than that. Its only directive is to keep us alive in the present moment by reducing immediate risk.
Meaning, if that folded paper napkin is the most effective safety mechanism the system currently has in its repertoire, it will deploy it every single time it senses that the environment is becoming unstable.
It just defaults to what it knows.
It aggressively defaults to the known equilibrium. Yeah, because it equates that equilibrium with survival.
Which brings us to the primary case study the text uses to ground all this heavy theory into reality, a man named Fabrizio.
Right, Fabrizio. He presents at the clinic suffering from severe chronic insomnia.
And looking through this new biological lens, Fabrizio's insomnia isn't a random disease that just struck him out of the blue. His forced wakefulness is his folded napkin.
Exactly.
It's the highly specific equilibrium his survival system has constructed to deal with whatever wobbly table event he is currently navigating in his life.
That realization pushes us directly into the second major question Baciarelli poses in the Manifesto. If a symptom is essentially the body's method of forcing balance, why does Fabrizio's body choose insomnia?
Yeah, why that specific symptom?
Why wouldn't a different person experiencing the exact same stressful event develop a stomach ulcer?
Yeah.
Or a rash? Or absolutely nothing at all?
Because we see that all the time. Two people can survive the exact same car crash or go through the exact same corporate layoff, and their bodies manifest completely different physiological reactions.
Which brings us to Baciarelli's second question. Why does that specific person construct that specific biological feeling?
The notes refer to this using the Italian term sentito biologico, right? The biological feeling.
Yes. The foundational biological laws can tell us the mechanical, how the body alters tissue to build a symptom. But the biological Enneagram, which is the core framework being developed here, aims to tell us who is deciding that the event is dangerous in the first place.
Who or what mechanism is assigning that specific meaning?
Exactly. Who is assigning that biological meaning to a neutral event?
Let me push back on this for a second, because I think a lot of people listening might have the same thought. Isn't this just a fancy way of describing our personality?
It's a common question.
Like, if I'm a naturally anxious, hypervigilant person, I'm just going to react more intensely to a stressful email than my coworker, who is naturally laid back, right?
It's entirely intuitive to assume personality is the driver. I mean, psychology has operated on that assumption for a very long time. However, the text explicitly dismantles this idea.
Oh, what?
Yeah. The research argues that before personality even boots up, before your conscious thoughts, before your emotional regulation, before your learned character traits, your ancient survival system is already interpreting reality.
It's that fast.
And it filters that reality through our biological instincts.
So the instincts act is the very first layer of perception.
Yes. The text identifies three primary evolutionary instincts. The preservative instinct, the social instinct, and the sexual or one-to-one instinct. These act as the initial filter of reality.
Establishing our base biological priorities.
Right. A person whose dominant instinct is preservative is constantly scanning the environment for threats to their resources, their physical safety, shelter.
Makes sense.
But a person whose dominant instinct is social is scanning that exact same environment for entirely different threats. They're looking at group belonging, hierarchy, and social positioning.
So they are literally inhabiting different realities.
Yeah.
The objective event is identical, but because the biological priority is completely different, the biological feeling generated in the body is totally different.
What's fascinating here is how the text transforms these psychological concepts into an almost mathematical equation.
Yeah, the math part blew my mind.
It's an equation for understanding human behavior and symptom creation. It moves beyond subjective profiling into a structural formula.
The way the notes lay out this math is incredible. Let's walk through this equation. You start with the dominant instinct, which we just established is the underlying biological priority. Then you add the any type.
Right.
For those unfamiliar, the Enneagram outlines 9 distinct personality types. But Baciarelli redefines the Enneatype not just as a personality, but as the specific strategy the survival system uses to meet the demands of that dominant instinct.
Exactly. And when you combine instinct plus an E-type, you get what the author calls the supratype, or supertipo.
The supertype.
It represents the stabilized default mode through which your highly individualized survival system organizes this interaction with the world.
But the formula doesn't stop there. To get the full picture of symptom creation, the notes emphasize that you must factor in a third variable, the blind instinct.
Ah, the blind instinct. This is the biological function that is the absolute least available to that person.
It's like a blind spot.
Exactly. It's the area of life where the volume is turned all the way down, creating a massive blind spot in how they process environmental data.
So if we run the numbers, you have 3 possible dominant instincts, 9 possible Enneatypes, and 2 remaining options for the blind instinct. When you multiply that out, the author hypothesizes that there are exactly 54 distinct behavioral and biological configurations.
54.
54 incredibly specific ways a human survival system can be organized.
Returning to our case study of Fabrizio and his insomnia, we can map him much more accurately now.
Yeah.
He isn't just a generic insomnia.
Right, he's a very specific configuration.
Under this framework, Fabrizio is mapped as a type 1, which relies on a strategy of perfection and control. His dominant instinct is preservative, meaning his priority is securing his foundation and safety. And his blind instinct is sexual, meaning he lacks focus on intense one-to-one energetic exchange.
So Fabrizio's survival system is a highly customized 1 in 54 piece of biological machinery.
That's it, exactly.
It is scanning his life and reacting based on that exact inflexible configuration. The true protagonist of his illness isn't the insomnia itself, and it's not even the Enneagram personality framework.
No.
The protagonist is the survival system operating beneath all of it, desperately trying to keep that specific 54-point structure intact.
It radically shifts the focus of any therapeutic intervention. I mean, the Enneagram simply becomes the cartography, the map we use to read the hidden territory of the survival system.
This brings us to a really critical juncture in the text. If our survival system is this incredibly complex, customized 54-point machinery, what actually flips the switch?
That's the big question.
What makes the machinery suddenly decide, okay, deploy the insomnia protocol right now?
The text introduces the concept of the biological button to explain this exact mechanism, the pulsante biologico.
And it's important to note the text differentiates this biological button from a standard psychological trigger.
Yeah.
Or a classic PTSD response, right?
Yes, fundamentally different.
Because when we hear trigger, we usually think of classical conditioning. Like a certain sound or smell reminds you of a past trauma and you get anxious, but the biological button is functioning on a much deeper systemic level.
Vastly deeper.
Yeah.
The dialogical button is not just an unhealed emotional wound or a repressed memory. The text describes it as the exact point of convergence of absolutely everything we have discussed so far.
A total convergence point.
Picture a massive funnel. Pouring into the top of this funnel are your dominant instinct, your knee-type strategy, your blind instinct, your entire personal history, your specific biological feeling, and your embryonic layers.
Let's pause on that term because embryonic layers sounds incredibly technical. How does embryology fit into a behavioral framework?
It traces back to the biological laws. When the text mentions embryonic layers, the endoderm, mesoderm, and ectoderm, it's referring to the evolutionary origins of our physical tissues.
Yeah.
Early in human evolution, the endoderm developed to handle basic survival like digestion and breathing. The mesoderm evolved later for movement and protection, like bones and muscles.
Okay, following.
And the ectoderm evolved to manage territorial boundaries and social contact, like the epidermis and nervous system. The biological button is the mechanism that connects your specific psychological perception of an event directly to the exact evolutionary tissue layer designed to handle that kind of conflict.
So at the very tip of that massive funnel is the biological button. It is the precise microscopic intersection where a seemingly random external event like, I don't know, a boss looking at you the wrong way, is suddenly assigned a life or death biological meaning by your specific 54-point configuration.
Exactly.
And instantly routed to a specific tissue layer in your body to create a symptom.
It happens in a fraction of a second, entirely beneath the threshold of our conscious awareness. The system bypasses your rational brain completely.
Okay, so let's drive this to the final, most practical phase of our deep dive. Let's say you map this entire architecture out. You do the work, you figure out you're a type 1, preservative-dominant, sexual blind, just like Fabrizio.
Right.
You pinpoint the exact nature of your biological button. You completely and totally understand why you have the symptom. You've solved the mystery. You're cured. Right. I can finally throw away the folded napkin under the table.
This is where we collide with Baciarelli's third and final question. What allows the survival system to build a more stable equilibrium? Because the hardest truth the text reveals is this: cognitive understanding does not equal biological change.
Oh, that is a bitter pill to swallow for anyone who loves analyzing their own behavior and reading self-help books.
No.
We think awareness is the finish line.
We really do. We have a massive cognitive bias in modern therapy. We believe that if we can just articulate the reason for our pain, the pain will evaporate. But the survival system is not a rational philosopher. It is an ancient, highly reactive bodyguard. You cannot simply order a bodyguard to stand down by reading it a psychological profile.
That makes so much sense.
You can't think your way out of a symptom because the neocortex, the thinking brain, isn't the part of the body that generated the symptom in the first place.
So explaining logic to a bodyguard who genuinely believes you are under sniper fire isn't going to make them relax. They need proof that the environment is clear.
The survival system doesn't change because you explain the origins of your childhood trauma to it. It changes its behavior only when it actually experiences a different equilibrium as being fundamentally safer.
Safety is a somatic experience, not an intellectual concept.
Exactly.
This explains a stance in the notes that really caught my attention. The Manifesto argues aggressively against the idea of universal therapeutic protocols.
If we accept that there are 54 distinct organizations of the survival system, it becomes scientifically impossible for a single, universal integration protocol to work for everyone.
Because if you have two people suffering from insomnia, you can't hand them the exact same therapy worksheet and expect a cure.
Right. You can't.
The text mentions several modalities: EMDR, NLP, hypnosis, Gestalt therapy. But Baciarelli's point isn't about running a clinical trial to figure out which technique is the objective best.
No. The focus shifts entirely to what a specific technique allows a specific 54-point survival system to experience. The therapeutic goal is to curate a coherent set of physical, emotional, and relational experiences that physically demonstrate to that unique system that it is safe to drop the old equilibrium.
So what did that actually look like for Fabrizio? How do you provide a new experience of safety for a type 1 preservative dominant who is locked into chronic insomnia?
Well, the notes indicate that Fabrizio's integration didn't just involve talking about his need for perfection. He had to undergo a holistic process. Through targeted physical, emotional, and behavioral interventions, his specific survival system had to confront its blind spots. It had to physically experience that his inherent worth and physical survival were not dependent on maintaining flawless control over his environment.
Because type 1s, especially with a preservative-dominant instinct, often carry that crushing cellular need to be beyond reproach, right? To manage every detail just to feel a baseline level of safety.
His entire neurobiology was locked in a state of vigilant control. That hypervigilance was the insomnia.
Wow.
But through this process of integration, his system was gently exposed to experiences where he wasn't in control, perhaps where he failed at something minor, and crucially, survived it.
Survived it.
Yes. The system felt on a visceral level that it didn't need to stand guard 247 to secure its existence.
So the actual biological meaning of his daily life events changed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When that underlying meaning shifted from the constant drone of "I am in danger of failing" to a new baseline of "I am fundamentally safe," the insomnia simply wasn't required anymore.
It was an old equilibrium.
Right. The folded napkin wasn't forcefully removed or cured. The system just realized the floor was level again and retired the strategy.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize everything we've pulled from Baciarelli's Manifesto today, it means that healing, or integration as the text frames it, is not a mental exercise.
No, it's not.
You absolutely cannot outthink your biology. It is a full-body process of negotiating with your customized survival machinery, providing it with the exact physical and emotional evidence it needs to finally let its guard down.
It is a journey that demands profound respect for the intelligence of the body. We have to transition from viewing a symptom as a broken, malfunctioning enemy
to seeing it as an incredibly elegant, highly customized survival strategy.
Exactly. It's merely a strategy that is operating on outdated information and desperately needs an experiential update.
It's just doing the best it can with the folded napkin it has.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Baciarelli leaves us with a truly vital closing thought in his presentation. He emphasizes that authentic research doesn't end by handing you a definitive closed answer.
Right.
It ends by handing you a much better, much deeper question to ask.
Which completely alters how we can examine our own lives and even the lives of the people around us. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. We've talked a lot about our own internal survival systems, but what happens when we look outward?
That's a great point.
If you have a child who struggles with chronic physical symptoms or recurring behavioral issues, consider the 54-point configuration we discussed. Are we, as parents or caregivers, unconsciously passing down our own dominant instincts and our own rigid biological priorities?
This is very possible.
Instead of just trying to fix the child's symptom, we might need to ask, what environment of safety is my own survival system failing to provide, and how is their body brilliantly adapting to survive my blind spots?